What's going on, everybody? Nicholas Natt, and you are tuned in to the Natt Fitness Method, where we take facts above fiction and ultimately help you manifest your dreams to reality. Now, before I talk about my topic today, which is about risk, I want to remind everybody that this podcast really exists ultimately to help you reach your potential. That's what this is about. It's because you recognize that there's something greater within yourself that you're capable of doing, and that whatever it is you've been doing up to now is not working completely the way you want it or manifesting the kinds of reality that you hope to embark on. And so, using different health practices such as nutrition, food, or mindset, my goal is that you can take some sort of a contingency based on the things that I say and ultimately find a new method that's going to empower you to action and then therefore to reach your potential. So why am I talking about risk? I think risk is so important for a number of reasons. And before I talk about why, I want to go through the definition, which has a very powerful implication. It involves uncertainty about the effects, implications of an activity with respect to something that humans value, often focusing on the negative, undesired consequences. Let that sink in for a second. So, I talk about risk because if you're watching this show or if you're listening, you've been the kind of person who might consider himself or herself a dreamer. And we all know what it's like to be that person who has a dream, who has some kind of level of ambition. And when we put ourselves in an imaginary state where we're thinking about what it might feel like to accomplish something, to manifest a goal, or ultimately to connect with that person, to get the job, to manifest that dream, those things become exciting. Now, oftentimes what we don't do is we don't think a lot about their journey. And I think that the journey is going to require that of some pain, because pain and progress go together, right? It's hard to progress if you're not in a position of growth, and you can't grow unless you're up against some form of resistance. Now, that's not what the video is about or this topic today is about, but I say that because oftentimes that is usually what comes hand in hand when we talk about a dream or pursuing some sort of a goal or some sort of objective. The reason I talk about risk is because oftentimes when we get inspired or motivated and we're feeling this elevation of ambition, which is beginning to initiate the drive, ambition, the feeling, drive, therefore the action, we're oftentimes halted. We're halted by external world, whether it's family, a spouse, friends, people who don't understand what it is or why you have exactly what it is that has inspired you to do the things that you want to do. And that becomes important because with that, what these people illustrate is oftentimes very true. And that's the risk or risks associated with whatever it is you're trying to do. Now, I say that because there is validity behind that. There is power, there is truth behind the things that these people are saying. The difference is that to them, they don't understand the rationale and the reasons behind why you're doing that. And so they just see the consequences for what might happen if you come up short based on what you're probable or capable, or even worse, what they deem is probable or capable of achieving such an outcome. Now, again, you have to respect that. And I think the reason that happens, and the reason a lot of people don't think about risk, and the ones who do oftentimes talk themselves out, is because of this here very definition. It involves uncertainty, which in and of itself is actually scary. See, what we know about the human condition, which is something that I live with, as well as something that you live with and everyone that we know, is that we have three different parts to our mind: our unconscious, subconscious, and our conscious. Our conscious mind allows us to be anything. We'll just call that the adaptive part, which is why humans, and many words of people outside myself call it, are the apex predator. It's why we're on top as a species. Okay, now, if we talk about why that really exists and ultimately what that means, it just means that we can become anything. We can do anything. We can have a thought, build skills, work hard, change our body, change our knowledge, change our directive, and create a certain type of reality that originally started in our mind. See, a dog can't be anything more than a dog, or a coyote can't be anything more than a coyote, or a tree can only be a tree, or elk can only be an elk. And so that's powerful. And not to deviate, but I want to explain that because there's not risk really associated when you're living with instincts or when you don't have freedom of choice. When you have the ability to adapt, what you're talking about is changing the internal narrative of the unconscious mind, which is designed to keep you safe and keep you alive. It exists for all the good reasons, but it's been innovated and changed in our current society. So anything that you may take on that's going to require you to take on some element of pain, your unconscious mind is going to wave the flag and say, this is not a place you want to go. If that's reinforced by the words of other people about something that might be true that you either did not consider, then that becomes conviction. And that becomes powerful because, again, per the definition, it involves uncertainty about the effects, implications of an activity with respect to something that humans value, often focusing on the negative, undesirable consequences. It oftentimes focuses on the negative. We talk about hope, we think about the positive. We talk about risk, we tend to focus and direct our attention with such a hard level of austerity on the negative. I say that because I am not about risk aversion. I think it is foolish to look at something that you want to decide and say, I'm not going to go tell this person, or I'm not going to declare that, or I'm not going to write down because I'm just going to put my head down and tiptoe past this scary objective that might be right here so that way I don't lose my ambition. That would be foolish. And the reason that might be foolish is because if you aren't willing to look at risk, then you're not willing to accept the full contingency of what it is you might want. Everything that we want, which is worth having, that's not my own saying, that's something that's very common. If it's worth having, it's worth working for, right? Probably have heard that. Takes risk. And I think it's also why one of the most powerful quotes by one of the best athletes of a multitude of generations was Muhammad Ali. He said, "He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life." If we don't think about all of the things that we want to accomplish and we're not able to understand that going after that's going to cost something and that there is the opportunity that it may not happen, or it may not happen the first time, or it may not happen the second time, we have to be in a position where we understand really a few things. Is what we're working towards worth it? Do we want something because of what it might mean in the opinion or the eyes of others? And is that what scares us because it's something that we feel we need or something that we feel we want based on the say of what others feel or think about? Or is it that this is actually something that we know can improve the trajectory and the energy that we want to put forward in our lives, ultimately to manifest something much bigger than the lives we're living now, aka our potential? Now, if it's the latter, then I ask you the second thing. When we choose to assess risk, we're giving it value. I understand that this thing or these experiences that I'm going to forego are going to put me in a volatile state. Am I willing to burden up front, usually, the compromises, the sacrifices, the pain, the ridicule, the resentment, the doubt, the uncertainty, and all of that, how that might be emotionally, psychologically, and physiologically affecting me to have something that I do value? And you have to acknowledge that because that is the debt of a decision. Most people make decisions without consequences, and the reality is every decision that you and I make, whether we're aware of it or not, arbitrarily, does come with some sort of consequence. the exchange of making that decision, which gives you and I the right to adapt, is that it does have some contingency. And that contingency is that we have to accept. We have to be willing to say, on the dotted line, I understand what I'm working towards and what that would mean if I accomplish it. Likewise, I understand the contrary. Am I willing to sign on the dotted line? And the answer to that is going to be yes or no. And what I'm saying to you is, if that answer is yes, it better be something that you have consciously envisioned as a strong leverage point that's going to better your life and the lives of others around you. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about fear. Now, we've all heard, or many of us, I believe, have heard the acronym about fear: false evidence appearing real. Well, if we think about false evidence appearing real, we can break that down into a series of subsets, but said simply, our unconscious mind leverages emotions and it has a data bank. That data bank is really a vault of every single experience of every negative thing that we have experienced as fearful that has caused some form of pain. The thought of the unconscious mind and the way it communicates with the body is to transmit a feeling. That thought enters our brain, which gives us imagery, and then the brain communicates with the body via the emotion. How many of you have thought about the most embarrassing moment of your life, or one that you can remember last year, and when the time came for you to do something reflective of that or similar to that, you felt the same fear or anxiety or pressure or resentment that you felt back in that time, and it made you pause, or it made you stop, or it made you say, hey, I don't want to do this. Well, that is really what fear is designed to do, and it's such a powerful tool. And that tool has existed because for many years it often kept humans alive. All I'm saying to you now is that that's actually pivoted and it's different, and if you recognize it for what it truly is, you'll understand that you can circumvent that. You can have the ability, through inquisitive thought, to actually sit down and write and examine. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? I feel fear, but where is that fear coming from? Is that fear real? Does that change what I'm working towards? And is so, fine. But if it's communicating information, can that actually be a benefit? Hey, I have this thing I want to accomplish and I want to leave my job, i.e., or I want to lose weight, or I want to ask that person out. And ultimately, there's some doubt associated with that. And if there's validity behind that, maybe that fear is telling you something that you may not have yet or that you need to acquire. But if you're willing to go and you're willing to look at that, you alter the ratio of the likelihood of that actually happening. Fear doesn't tell you that. So when you're going and you're pursuing something that's risky, what we have to understand is that there's validity in risk. It's important for us to make the association and interpretation that risk is essential if we're going to make a decision that can empower us. You have to be able to jump. You have to be willing to accept that risk. If you don't, you can play it safe, but as Muhammad Ali said, there is little to any accomplishment in life. And if we are doomed to live a life, and yes, I did say doomed, to live a life of mediocrity without any innovation, without the accomplishment of goals, without striving at least to reach our potential, then what is the point of living anyway? We simply don't exist as individuals to play small in life. Now, does that mean that everyone has the same level of greatness within them? No. But I do mean that everybody does have a timeline and a potentiality of their own greatness and their own impact that they're supposed to make. Not living or taking the risk for that is playing small in life. And to me, it's not a life worth living. So hopefully these words have inspired you to look at and examine what risk might be worth taking, what risks you haven't taken in your life, but more importantly, to re-examine the interpretation behind the things that you want that might be risky. The evaluation and look at what these risks might be able to impart on you might be exactly what it is you need in order to go from where you are to where you want to be. This is the Natt Fitness method, where we take facts above fiction ultimately to manifest your dreams into reality. I hope that you definitely join me, and all I ask is that if this message has been one that's given you some sort of value, and you wish to share that with a family member or a friend or a coworker or anyone you know, share it with as many people as possible. You can connect with me at any of the different platforms listed below. And if you're willing to take on the challenge of stepping into what will be the journey moving towards your potential, I love to connect with you on my back office platform. Send me your message, connect with me on any of these platforms. Until next time, my friends, enjoy, indulge, and discover what the evaluation of risk might mean for you. See you later.